Hello, everyone, and welcome to Petite to Queen's Claim Your Career Crown podcast. I'm your host, Lynn, and today I'm joined by our wonderful guest, Stacy Bahrenfuss. I wanted to make sure I got that right, Stacy Bahrenfuss. And today we're going to be talking about why the solutions you need to leave toxic traits are within you. So I am really excited for this discussion, and I want to tell you a little bit about Stacy. She helps women leaders who have achieved massive results externally that feel dissatisfied and unfulfilled claim their power and happiness. The founder of Truth Teachers, Stacy is on a mission to reveal what disconnects you even after you have achieved massive results externally. Experts in dealing with the root instead of the system and eradicating struggle for their clients, the Truth Teachers specializes in being a vessel to accelerate transformation. They believe that you can create anything you set your mind to when you remove self-sabotage and create from fulfillment. Stacy, this is such an incredibly important conversation, and I am so glad to have you here today.
I'm so excited to be here with you, Lynn. This conversation is going to be fantastic.
It is. And for those of you who are joining us for that very first time, take a moment right now and subscribe to Claim Your Career Crown wherever you get your podcasts. And if you love what we're doing, you love the show, please leave us that 5-star review. We would very much appreciate it. So, Stacy, I know that you have an absolute fascinating backstory, which is really how that drove you to do what you're doing now with Truth Teachers. So I'd love to have you reveal that with our audience.
Yes. So I started my first career when I was 19 in real estate and development. And I was on a mission, but what I didn't realize was that that mission was really driven by an emptiness inside. And so that mission was to be the best, to provide this elite, amazing customer experience. And as I would achieve these different goals and these different, revenue targets, client acquisition targets, as I would achieve these things, I noticed that I still felt unhappy. I still felt empty. And it got to the point where I had finally achieved this momentous goal with my team and clientele. And it was the pinnacle of my success. And I felt so empty. And so it set me on this personal development obsession, quite frankly, of figuring out what is wrong with me that I still feel unfulfilled after all of this external success. And so, like you had said and shared in my bio, that's really how Truth Teachers was born. I was noticing as I was practicing with the best coaches and mentors that they were teaching things separately. So I started to combine them and created this concoction, if you will, that I started to see different results where they were lasting and more rapid. And so that's really what we share with our clients today.
Oh, that's fantastic. And, when you were able to pull all of that in, and then you're able to, it's almost like creating something in a mixing bowl, and then you're putting all these different ingredients in that are all wonderful separately, but then they create magic together. That's absolutely beautiful. So I'm curious, do you have a specific process that you go through to really help women recognize these toxic traits, work through self-sabotage, and what is that?
Yes. Yeah. So definitely combining, what's happening emotionally, because for us as women, especially, we don't necessarily stop and smell the roses and think about how we feel. And so really tuning into what's going on in our body and how we feel is step one. And then looking at what's going on within the subconscious and what's really happening, because when we look at the subconscious, that's what's driving our results and the things that are almost getting in our way, the sabotage. And so looking at those and then combining spiritual practices and really understanding that if we can understand embodiment and feelings, that we can start calling in what we want sooner than we thought, because there's no difference between, our dreams and desires and the feeling we think that's going to give us if we choose to feel that now versus it's outside of us. And so really bringing that concoction, like a brownie mix or a, like something like that, together is the special sauce. And so what I like to do, and I know we're going to talk about this today, which I'm super excited about, is really break down simply what these 3 things you can do are to really end that self-sabotage.
Yeah. And I'm really curious about those, resolving the toxic traits that are within you and recognizing that. And I understand definitely the subconscious mind, how that is almost like the autopilot. It's just running all the time. And if you need to get into that and sort of change the code.
Yes, exactly. That's such a great way to say it.
So, when you're working with people, do they often recognize their own toxic traits, or are they not able to see that as clearly from an outsider's perspective?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that I work primarily with women that we see with our clients is women are really good nurturers. We love to take care of others. That's our conditioning. But what we don't see is that actually can become the number 1 toxic trait, which is pleasing and seeking approval externally. And so a lot of times we don't see we're doing that. We see that we are helping our client or we are helping a team member. But if we can just look closer and ask the question, where am I coming from internally? Am I coming from pleasing or am I leading? And that question alone can be so revealing, because if we're leading our lives, we're not trying to get something from someone. We're complete. We believe we're enough, and we are going through the world in that way. Whereas if we are pleasing, we can easily see that if we ask ourselves, if this person doesn't validate me, or if this person doesn't engage in my pleasing, how would I feel? And if you see that you would be left empty, or if you would see there's a dissatisfaction or a letdown kind of feeling, you know that you're pleasing. And so that's really a top toxic trait that can easily go unnoticed for women.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That
I can relate. Can you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I have this one really irritating thing that I do when I make, an elaborate meal or any kind of meal. It's like, I'll ask the family member, oh, do you like it? And it's like, what is this craving, as you said, for that approval? And I mean, literally, one bite in the mouth and do you like it? It's like, and I make a joke of it now because I've recognized that. And yet I still, it's like this, Pavlov's dog, it still comes out of my mouth. It's just like, I'm going, stop. And that's quite funny. So, that, of course, I can see how that could hold people back. And, sometimes just that there can be a real barrier that I've seen of people recognizing that they, like, oh, well, I've tried that. It didn't work, of actually stepping outside and really pushing their boundaries in the sense of the growth mindset. And is this something that you encounter a lot with the work that you do?
Yeah. So just to use that toxic trait as an example, and what I'm going to say is many times when we see something we don't like about ourselves, we immediately go and how do I fix this? Right? That's the natural. How do I change? How do I become different than I am? And what I'm saying is look at the toxic trait and don't try to change it. See that you seek external validation. And when I say that to my clients, they look at me like, you want me to do nothing? What do you mean? I don't know how to do nothing. I'm so good at doing things. And that is actually the secret to true transformation. And it's so simple. If you're willing to see, in the example of pleasing and seeking approval, if you're first willing to see that without judgment, that is when the insight can become a breakthrough, and you can then go and do something external to change it. but it's because you're aware. And it's kind of like once you shine a light on anything, you can't not see it again, right? And so you're going to catch yourself, just like you were saying. And I love that example because I do that almost nightly. Do you like what I just made you, husband? And he's like, why are you asking me for the 50th time? But you can laugh about it versus before it was subconscious or unconscious, where you were just asking and over again, not realizing that you were trying to.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And I think bringing some humor in actually is one way that you can help break a bad habit or a toxic trait.
Yes.
And because it just sort of changes that, and then you can visualize, and it's a journey, right? So for me, it's definitely a journey to stop asking immediately, how do you like this?
Yes.
My goodness. I wonder how many people listening who cook, or bake, barbecue, whatever it is, have that same thing. It'd be funny to find out.
Yes.
So what are some of the other things that you really encounter? Because we're talking about these toxic traits, or self-sabotaging behaviors that really hold people back, and and how they can find that strength within to really break free.
Yeah. So the other one, and this is such a conditioning thing for men and women, I think men are just able to push through it differently, is that things are hard, right? You've been around that person that says, oh, it's just so hard. Oh, this is so hard. Or this goal I've set is so big, it's going to be hard. And I know for me, what I see is actually a different version of it's hard in my life. And this could resonate with our listeners today. And that is that when we're pursuing any worthwhile goal, or when we're trying to achieve something, sometimes things show up, right? If you're, attracting opportunity, things can show up, and then we actually do something to make it hard because it was easy. And I don't know about you, but this is something that I actually caught myself doing this earlier this week. And it's just like, let it be easy, and I think for a lot of women, that's another toxic trait that can show up because we have this conditioning that things are challenging. And so the human mind, no longer looking for the tiger chasing us, we're looking for the struggle. And there are a lot of times that there's no struggle. And so the sabotage is that we can create it. And that can be just a huge eye opener. I know it was for me, of like, oh my gosh, like I'm actually creating things to be hard when they're easy because I'm conditioned to think it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that phrase, I will like keep it simple, and it's like, and because you do, it's sort of like, well, how, you start doing this, and I catch myself going, I'm overcomplicating this whole thing. I'm actually creating work that's unnecessary. And so I have that I call the powerful pause. Take that moment and go, okay, step back. What is the bare minimum? What's needed? What would be nice? And what's just completely unnecessary busy work?
Yeah.
And because that's that I will find myself, that's so funny because I did see myself in that, and the fact that I will see myself starting to overcomplicate things, and I'll stop myself and I go, wait a minute, I'm going to give myself a minute to process this and consider. And then I can actually sort of stop myself in my tracks.
Yeah. And what you're saying is
there is no tiger there, and I don't need to throw a spear.
Right.
I don't need to start carving all the spears and cutting down the wood and sharpening the rocks and putting them on the spear, because there's no tiger chasing me. So I don't need to do all this.
I must admit, I do really like the visual of you with a spear, Lynn. I think that's a powerful stance for you.
Well, I would never throw a spear at a tiger, by the way, because I love tigers. And
I know. So good.
Oh,
well, and what you just said is brilliant, because what you're saying is that when you do a powerful pause, you're allowing yourself to see the truth. And that's the way that you can either assess that you're making it too complicated, or assess that, oh, it can be much simpler and you can move forward. And so I think that's brilliant in the way that you structure that, because we're saying the same thing, right? I'm saying, see the truth. You're saying powerful pause, but that's really the secret to all of this that a lot of people don't talk about. It's always this next step or strategy or technique, and the power in a pause or allowing yourself the space to see the truth is where you can really change.
Yeah. It's that 1 minute of that moment that can help you with the direction. And it's the same thing when you get, this is sort of a little bit off topic, but it's really front of mind with me because this is something else that always occurs, is that people get distracted with the shiny object because there's so many things bombarding us. And it has nothing to do with toxic traits or self-sabotage, unless this is a trait that you have that you're constantly chasing the next thing. But doing that same pause and saying, now, wait a minute, is this really a golden opportunity that I don't want to miss? Or is it a distraction? Or is it something that will fit in down the road? You know, it doesn't have to be yes or no, right? It can be, yeah, this is pretty cool, but just not now.
Yeah.
And so I know that in my sales strategy with clients, that's something that I will encounter, is that it's like, well, no, we actually we're building out a strategic map, and to get us from where you are to where you want to be. And, you know, that, oh, well, should we be doing this? And it's like, well, not right now. But every so often, an opportunity will literally just fall in your lap, and you're going to say, okay, we need to take advantage of this.
Right.
We're just going to, I just recently did that. We're going to make a hard pivot because this is such an incredible opportunity. And it's not a distraction, and it's not to put off it. We need to jump on it. Right. But I feel like when women do this, or men, anyone, children, you give yourself the gift. You give yourself the gift for a moment of clarity.
Yes. And that gift can, by you slowing down and allowing yourself that clarity, you can make exponential leaps where if you're not clear and you're just in the rat race, you aren't making strategic moves. You're making reactive moves, and you can't see the forest through the trees. And so I think that's, so good what you just said.
Yeah. Well, and you have to train yourself. I mean, I had to learn to train myself to literally stop. Like, you know, there's, you know, because same thing, you got emails coming at you, you've got calls coming in, you've got messages. I mean, my gosh, now I can, you know, it's like on 16 different platforms, and, you know, and it's like, stop, you know, and just regroup. And when you do that, for me, at least, it helps me sort of step back into my own power and step into the control, and then say, what's the top priority, and go from there. So this is really fascinating. And I mean, through our discussion, this is so important that people really step out of themselves to find and discover these behaviors, these toxic traits, these self-sabotaging, limiting beliefs that are actually holding them back. So what advice do you have for our listeners on something that they could actually implement today or tomorrow or this week that could help them break through and move forward?
Yes. So I have a very simple approach with this, because I believe that if I give you something simple, you're actually going to do it, and you can actually do it in the busyness of the day. And so my recommendation is to first be aware of your breath. At one point today, stop and take 3 conscious breaths. And what I mean by conscious breaths is you breathe in and count to 3 inside. And when you exhale, count to 6. And you will just notice that your shoulders all of a sudden are maybe an inch lower than they were. So that's a very easy thing you can do. Your breath is with you at all times. But the next step after you do that is ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? because, and this is a great technique to use if you're ever like feeling rushed throughout the day or hustling from one thing to the next, is just do a check-in. What am I feeling internally right now? And let it be. Listen. So ask the question and just listen. And if you're feeling a less than great emotion, let's say that you just got off of a call with a client, it didn't go well, or something has happened and you're feeling frustrated or overwhelmed, see that you feel overwhelmed. Don't make it right or wrong, and don't try to change it. And you're going to have an interesting experience where all of a sudden that no longer is running the day. Because we've all had those days where we get overwhelmed and it sticks with us all day. If you're willing to take this pause and connect to what you're feeling, it can really transform into energy that then fuels what it is you want versus debilitating you or distracting you throughout the day.
Yeah, no, that is brilliant. Brilliant. I love the second part because I knew about, taking that breath and, doing that, because sometimes I do the same. I'll put my feet flat on the ground and just do the deep breath in and out. And that also that helps calm me. And then I can, like, and I'll sometimes also close my eyes, but then I just, okay, open my eyes. But I love the second part because I was missing that second part, to check in with what I'm feeling, to acknowledge that, and no judgment, to be able to move forward. Oh, thank you so much, Stacy. Well, you've helped me today.
Awesome.
I know that you've helped all kinds of people who are listening. Thank you so much for sharing why the solutions you need to leave toxic traits are within you. And I know that our listeners are going to want to know more about you and where they can find out about you.
Yes. So the best place is our website, which is thetruthteachers.com. And I'm going to provide a very special link for you and your listeners. That is a 5-minute meditation that will be included in the show notes. So I'll provide that to you.
And we will have that right below. So that's one click away. Thank you so much, Stacy. And this has been such an incredibly informative discussion. And thank you everyone who tuned in. If you have any ideas that you'd like to share, comments about the meditation link, please leave that below. We love hearing your thoughts. And if you have a specific question or would like to suggest a topic for discussion, please email us at jointheconversation@petitetoqueen.com. And to stay current on all of our insightful advice, the breakthrough advantages, and absolutely incredible episodes like the one today with Stacy, sign up for our weekly wisdoms and you won't miss a single thing. And that's at petitetoqueen.com. And thank you again for tuning in. And Stacy, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. This was a pleasure.